do it. How is that the Kohen not allowed to go to a cemetery, right? But Kivri Tzadikim are allowed to go. How come?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Think about it.
Okay, we'll leave that an aside right now.
Yes, sorry.
And we'll look quickly at something which is really the opening words of this week's parsha. The responsibility that adults have for children. It says in this week's parsha, Emor, V'amarta, because I'll have a problem with the double word. When it says, Lahazar Emor means you have to be careful with the mitzvahs I'm telling you here. V'amarta means you have to make sure that your children and Jewish children are careful. Reading the Gemara says in Yevamos, Toshma, Lo Teichel K'sheket we shouldn't eat. We're talking about things that you're not allowed to eat. Sheretz. Why? Because Torah says shekets. So Rashi says this pasuk is totally repetitive because it's already mentioned earlier in the Torah. So we're reading Lo ta'achilum. There's no nakudus in the Torah. You could play around with the vowels. Lo ta'achilum doesn't mean you shouldn't eat it because we know you're not allowed to eat it. Lo ta'achilum, you shouldn't feed it. Lahazak g'dolim al aktanim, that the g'dolim shouldn't feed it to the ktanim. My love, the amar lo lo ta'achlu. The adults have to make sure to tell the children not to eat it. So no, not that much. Braisa says you don't have to go out of their way. The lo lisaflu b'dam, they're not allowed to feed it to the children with their hands. Toshma emor. Sorry, I missed one.
Meaning if I see a little kid eat something brave, I can't give it to him, but if he eat by himself, I don't have to tell him nothing. Going to this more.
Yeah.
Strange.
Toshma kol nefesh mekem lo teichel dom. Again, Rashi says because we already know earlier they're not allowed to eat dam. It was repetitive. To tell you one, you're not allowed to eat dam. Second, you're not allowed to feed it to the little children. Again, the same thing. I love them like Tashma, third Braisa. It says Emor v'amarta. I love them like the Tamu. That the daddy Kohen tells the baby Kohen, don't become tummy. The daddy is not allowed to take his children and make them tummy with his hands. Gemara says, why do we need three places? The Torah should tell me three extra psukim to tell me one simple din, that the adults are responsible for the children. If I would just say the din of eating the shkotzim, all these, an ant, a roach, a rodent. If you'd say, by that mitzvah, there's a chidush, and that even if the ant is so tiny, it's not a kazayis, it's also. So because it's so strict, because we see that this Isser is so strict, the Eibishter said, usually you're not allowed to eat something also a kazayis. And this, even if it's a mashu. So I would say, because it's so strict, that's why the Eibishter said that the adults are responsible for the children. But otherwise, the adults are not responsible for the children. Therefore, the Torah has to tell it to you elsewhere. A person that doesn't get punished if he drinks a little bit of blood, he has to be a 4 is 3 ounces. So I'd say, blood, it's no problem. The adults can feed it to the children. If
you don't vomit before.
Exactly.
Drink a little bit, drink more.
Other societies, they love it. They drink blood and they think it's the healthiest thing.
The German used to take a shot, go to the hose, go like this, suck it, and drink it when it's warm.
But there is societies
that very strong.
Yeah,
you say that the oil does make them strong.
There's societies that they know it's not stop.
That's how bad they are.
If you'd say only by dam, but say, you know why? When a person eats blood, the punishment is very stiff. It's kodesh. That's why the responsibility is on the g'dolim for the ktanim. If we would say by these two that the adults are responsible for children, if we say it by dute, because this is, no one is allowed to have blood. Doesn't matter. If you're Sfardi or Ashkenaz, if you're Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, it doesn't matter from which country you come from. But Tumah, I would say, since it only applies to Koyanim, so maybe over there the Eibishter doesn't care. The Torah only said by something which is Surah Shav B'Koil. Therefore, as I told you also about Tumishman Batum, I would say Koyanim Shani, Mishum Deriba Mitzvus Yisayris, Alhani Emaloid Sicha. The Beis Yosef and Simon Shimon Gimel asks a simple question. The Taz says that this is not a cool question, but he doesn't answer it. He says, well, why do we eat all three? So basically, the Rebbe Tai chose the question of the Beis Yosef. He says, why did the Torah have to go like this and like this? Torah could have said, for example, by nevela. Nevela is not also a mashu. It's a kazayis, and it's not chayiv kodesh. It's a regular issur. So why did the Torah and then you could say, also for Tumah we'd have to say it also by koinim.
He's asking a theoretical question.
A theoretical question, yeah. Why? So Taz says that that's not a cool question because we don't ask such questions. But the Beis Yosef, I don't understand. So if the idea was,
he's asking Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah, he's asking Moshe Rabbeinu. So
question. Never hear such a thing.
Right. So it's a funny question. Why couldn't the Rebbeinu Shalom rearrange the Torah a little bit? Why couldn't he teach it to us he would save himself a pasuk or two by telling us the din through nevela? The Rebbe says, even though it's like is a funny question, but it was asked about the Maram Beis Yosef, and it's a question. So the Rebbe says we could say that the answer is like this. It's a brilliant answer. The Rebbe twice over the years, the Rebbe answered this question. Once in a Fabreng in a little Alpinigla, and once there's a letter that he once wrote to someone about the importance of chinuch, where he goes through alpi, machshava. One is just a nice. The Torah wants to tell us what's the reason. What's the reason why adults are responsible for children? Why should I be responsible for the children? Like a kid is in Pampers. Okay, we'll talk about it soon. At what age it starts or whatever. Little kid, he's not responsible for mitzvahs. I have better things to do in my day. And you're telling me that I'm responsible for little Jewish children. Why should I, the Godel, be responsible for the cotton? Why are you making me responsible for the cotton? You're not putting the onus on the cotton because obviously you can't. You can't tell a child what to do, what not to do. He's a child. But you're telling the adults that they have to be responsible here. Why? What's the keshayches between the Gdolim and the Ktanim? The answer is, in a nutshell, that there is no. When do you think there's a difference of the Godel and a cotton when you look at the size? The daddy is 250 pounds, al terech mashal, and little tzvi is 40 pounds, 35 pounds. So al terech mashal, it's very daddy is 6'7", and little Bacharol is 2.5 feet. So he's big, he's small. I'm saying I'm describing it, but if you're looking at the Nakuda, the Neshama, right? The daddy has a Neshama, little Bacharol has a Neshama. They both have a Neshama. So if you're looking at the Neshama, they're equal. The Torah says we find 4 Yisurim, where over there you see. Usually every Yisur is that way, but you see by 4 Yisurim in the Torah, where the main thing is the Nakuda. Before we get to this, just a very important thing. The Gemara says, and this is a Gemara we didn't learn yet, but we're going to learn it to Metz Hashem soon. Gemara says in Yevomus, Daf Pei, that there's a certain amount that a person is starving, they're going to calm their hunger. The Gemara says, how could it be that a child that's a baby, and Oig Melech HaBashan should be, they're starving. Oig Melech HaBashan was fasting the whole Yom Kippur. Oig Melech HaBashan wouldn't fit in the shul, even with the Ezes Nashim here, and his head would be sticking up. You would have to open the roof for Oig Melech HaBashan to walk in here. Oig Melech HaBashan is huge. And a little kid, they both fast Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur, you bring out here sponge cake and coffee. And koseves. It's enough for the baby and Oig Melech HaBashan to Zal Bazach. The Gemara says, yeah, it's the same thing. Because in order to bring back that the person shouldn't expire, shouldn't die, so it's equal. The child will be a little more satisfied, and the Oig Melech HaBashan will be a little less satisfied from if you give him each this equal size of cake. But when it comes to so the Chassidus explains there's etzem achayis and espashtus achayis. Etzem achayis is what we call today DNA. It's where it all comes from. Espashtus achayis is how it spreads itself out. It's hard to imagine to say that say I went on a diet and I lost 20 pounds. My neshama got smaller. You gotta be to say such a thing. It doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense to say that the guy who is 200 pounds has a double neshama than a guy who weighs 100 pounds. So the same thing. This is similar to what the Gemara is saying when it comes to the etzem achayis. That's why Chassidus says that the neshama, for the same neshama that's machaya akotn could be machaya agodol. It doesn't. There's no such thing that there's a neshama that's for a godol and a neshama for a kotn. Okay. So now that we have this straight, so there's 40 surim where we see that the etzem, not the hispashtus. Again, there is the DNA. For example, you take and this is not the example he says here in the Sicha, but just you have an apple. Which part of the apple tastes better, the seeds or the flesh? The flesh tastes better, the seeds you don't eat. But if you want to now make another tree, which part is going to produce another tree?
The seed.
The seed, not the flesh. The seed is the nekudas achayis. Everything is in the seed. The whole DNA of an apple is in the seed. But that's not really so tasty. But what's tasty is the spashtos achayis, the whole apple, which maybe weighs a pound or pound and a half and has all these complexities and different tastes. But the truth is, all of that is really written in the DNA that's in the seed.
Oh.
You not taste it on your tongue, but when it goes into the ground registers exactly what's written in the DNA in the seed. So I'm just giving another example of the difference of etzem achayus and hispashtus achayus. Okay. So the Rebbe says in the mitzvah, there's 4 parts of the mitzvah. There is the mitzvah, there's the person, like the Gavra and the Chetz. There's the mitzvah, there's the person. And then what connects the mitzvah and the person? Hashem said that this mitzvah I have to do. And after I do the mitzvah, presumably I become a better person, right? So that makes a change in me. So there's 4 nekudas here that the Gemara says that because of this, we would think that this lahazar gdolim laktanim only applies. If you looked at only one, we'd say, it's mitzad chumra shebazeh. Now that we have all 4, we realize, no, it's a pattern, that the Eibishter wants that you should always be careful that the Gdolim should be responsible for the Ktanim. There's 4 things. One is Isurim B'Mashu. What's Isurim B'Mashu? What does it mean, the Isur B'Mashu? Why is the Isur B'Mashu? Because like we said with the apple and the it's like Avodah Zarah, we say Isurim B'Mashu. Nevela is, you have to have a whole chazayis. Why? Because the pashtus, it's the klipa, it's so repugnant avodah zarah that a mashu, you can't say, oh, it's very little, it's a poquito. There's no such thing. It's not little. It's avodah zarah. Nevela is also bad stuff, and be'emes it's against the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the way it comes out is that if you eat only a half a kazayis nevela, you don't get malchus, because it's not called chachila. You don't see the klipa. You don't see the evil of eating nevela. If he eats a cheeseburger, right, he has to eat a full kazayis. But if he engages in avodah zarah, he has enough from avodah zarah, even a mashu. So there's certainly surim where you see the nekuda of the mitzvah or the isur. In even a mashu, you see it. That's the idea of not ispashtus achayis, nekudas achayis. You see the nekuda right away. You see otazoi. So and then there is riba behem mitzvahs yiseidus. Why would the Eibishter give someone a lot of mitzvahs? Like it says, Ratzakash Baruch Hu zakul zakzerol. Because Hashem loves the Yidden. So he says, "We say hirba." How much? More and more and more. Like there's no end to it. So because there is an end.
What, the mitzvahs?
But
keep doing. No, you have, but keep doing the same mitzvah.
keep doing.
There's no end. Limiter. The mitzvah. Keep going limiter the whole life.
Can sein. Or maybe the pshat is, I don't know what the pshat is. Chazal could always add mitzvahs. I don't know. Could be like you said, you keep on doing. You keep on doing.
There's no time that I finish.
Right. Then, so there is a ribula mitzvahs is that because this shows us the nakuda of what's so special about a Jew. What's so special? How do you see that the Eibishter loves the Jew? So Chazal say, how do you know that the Jew is so special? Where do you see the nakuda of why a Jew is so special? Because Hashem chafetz laman sidkoi. Hashem has such a chafetz. He loves the Jews. You see it where? Where do you see Hashem chafetz laman sidkoi? Yagel Torah v'yadeh. Therefore, He gave them a lot of Torah to learn and a lot of Torah and a lot of mitzvahs to do. So from here, you see how special the Yid is. The nakuda. If you want to figure out, that Chanan Makasha says, you want to figure out what's so special about the Kohanim, what's so special about the Yidden. When you see that the Eibishter gives them extra mitzvahs, you see the nekuda of that the Yid is special. So the nekuda that the mitzvah or the isur is special, you see it in an expression because it's surah memashu. The nekuda that the Jew is so special, you see it because here balahem mitzvahs yeseiris.
And that's the available.
And that's we said one of the things that we said is that there's that besides the kohanim and the other two mitzvahs is the kohanim. We said that tuma. You're right, tuma. That tuma was given to kohanim because the kohanim are very special. So the Eibishter was marab alayim mitzvahs and gave them more mitzvahs than regular yid. But the idea of riba ben mitzvahs yiseidis is gives out the nakuda of the specialty of this person, the kohanim over here.
Right. Is the from the apple.
Is the nakuda. This gives out the nakuda of their chashivas. Then you have another two things. There is a isur which is shava bakoil. He said that the other three things, the two things besides by the kohanim, the idea of not eating blood, mishkatz and shava bakoil. So what's the idea of shava bakoil? That because the Eibishter gave it, it's not nageya, me, you. It's shava bakoil because it comes from the Eibishter. So therefore, it expresses itself in the Inyan. Where do you see that it's mitzad the Eibishter? If it's mitzad me, so maybe a big Talmud Chacham should have more mitzvahs, small Talmud less mitzvahs. But when the idea that shav isur and shav bakoil, mitzvah and shav bakoil expresses the idea, it comes from the Eibishter. So what's the difference? You can't say a Talmud Chacham is more and Emor it says less mitzvahs. The idea of mitzvahs and shav bakoil, isur and shav bakoil is mitzad, expresses mitzad the Eibishter. And Kodesh is the opposite, expresses the person. What is the idea of Kodesh? And Kodesh, Al-Rebbe says in the Geras HaKodesh that if a person, every mitzvah that a person does strengthens his connection. Every Aveda a person does, cuts like as if there was a little big rope, a boat was docked, and there's a boat that has hundreds of little strings that are tied together, and it's a thick rope like this. So if you cut a little here and cut a little there, the boat is still going to be tied up. But if you slice the whole thing, the boat is going to go flying off in the ocean. You lost it. So there's some isurim that the truth is every isur, when a Jew does it, he gets disconnected to Hashem. But there's certain isurim that you see, the guy did it, it's as if he was hanging from a cliff with a harness and there was a rope. And now that he did this isur, it's as if he took a knife and went, he cut the rope. And what happens now? He goes flying. What happens when he's going to hit the bottom? That's it.
Yeah.
Then someone's going to ask if he's a kohen, where's neshama is. That's it. It's over. So here you see what the pool of a mitzvah does in a person. That and told everything from the positive, the negative. From the negative, the positive. From the fact, in a certain mitzvahs, you see how the mitzvah touches a Jew. Hey, wait a minute. If he does the mitzvah, he's connected. He went against this mitzvah. It's as if he took a knife and he cut it open, and he stops living. Maybe he lives for a few more minutes until he hits the bottom. But that's it. As soon as he's disconnected, as dead man's walking, and it's over. So in the idea of Kodesh, in certain mitzvahs, The truth is, all the mitzvahs, when a Yid does it, he's connected, and when he doesn't do it, he disconnects. But there's some mitzvahs that you see clearly that second. Well, in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, it was mamish that way. Today, unfortunately, for whatever reason, now that it explains and get a HaKodesh because there's so much klipa in the world, but in those days, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, if a person really did this Veda that was Kodesh, that's it. It was all over. It was finished. So we see here how mitzvah touches the body of a Jew in a profound way. He does it, he's connected. He doesn't do it, he's disconnected. So these four nekudas is again, we said that there is the mitzvah, there is the person, there's the Eibishter who gives him the mitzvah, and after he does the mitzvah, there is how the mitzvah affects the person. And this is expressed in these four nekudas. Yisurim b'mashu expresses that the cheshivas of the mitzvah itself, or the isur itself. Riba b'mitzvahs yisayis expresses the importance of a yid. Then the Eibishter is the fact that the Eibishter is giving it is that's why a lot of isur nashava b'koil, and the fact that it is profound effect on the yid. That's why in some things you see, Horace, he didn't do it. That's it. It's all over.
How about it said karet? It's either way. It said in the Petan, nefesh harim. It's the nefesh, and Shama is still there.
No, but the body. But that's what the Chazal said, that the person that days of Beis Hamikdash, either 50 or 60, whatever, the Misa B'Shamayim, Kodesh, he didn't live past 60 years ago. That's it. It just didn't happen. The guy died. The Gashmi. The guy simply didn't live a day more than 60. That's just the way it was in the days of the Beis Hamikdash. There was no joke. It wasn't like this, like that. It was, Chazal tell us, it was that way. A person that was once over the Yisra Kodesh, now it could be, you have to look into Meforshim, what happens if a person did tshuva, but Lepoil, if a person didn't do tshuva, he didn't live a day past 60.
Wow.
That was it.
That's what some Beis Hamikdash.
Yeah. So the Rebbe says, so from these four things, Bama says by all mitzvahs, the chashivas of a mitzvah is the nekuda. And therefore, by all the mitzvahs are very important. And therefore, it's lahazir gdolim alaktanim, that the gdolim have to be mazeh the ktanim. Why? Because the chashivas of a mitzvah is not in his pashtus, it's in the etzem. And the etzem, me and my little daughter, me and my little child, is the hainu hach. If it comes to his pashtus, just like we said by Ugmel Chaboshen, he's about to die. That's it. He starved already for 3.5 days. So the koisvis that you give, the half a piece of sponge cake you're going to give to Oig Melech Havoshin and to little babies, to hold on to the etzem achayis, it's hainu hach. So because mitzvahs are so important that it touches the etzem of a yid and it's the etzem of the Eibishter, so therefore also even though you think he's a cotton, and what's our shaykhs, what do I have with the cotton? So no, because mitzvahs, when do you say the difference of a godel and a cotton, that he is 6'5", and the little child is only 36 inches, the baby is like measured 36 inches, is only in spashtos achayis. But in etzem achayis and the nekuda, they're the same. And in yois mitzvahs touch in the nekuda of achayis of a yid. So therefore, you can't say, I'm a godel and he's a cotton. So who cares? Because this touches in the etzem. And with this, you and him are equal. And therefore, you're responsible for him. And therefore, we can't say a child is responsible because he's not. But therefore, the Eibishter says, Emor v'amarta lahazir gdolim alaktanim, that the gdolim should be responsible for the ktanim. And therefore, it's expressed dafka in this way, because here are 4 mitzvahs that express the gewalt of all the other mitzvahs.
That's nigla.
Yeah?
That's the nigla.
It's the nigla. I mean, it's not nigla, but...
we say Baal Aveira. By mitzvah, we don't say Baal mitzvah. Once you do the mitzvah, you and the mitzvah is one. By Aveira, you could... Now, the
Lahazir Aktanim, the Rebbe has always this word that the Rebbe loved to say, that Lahazir means a Zoy. Zoyhar, ve'oir. That when the Gdolim...
We just said this word, Zohar.
Right. And we spoke about it recently. Zoyar means to shine. And Hazak Gdולים Aktanim, why take? Because when the Godel sees that I'm a Godel and he's a Kotten, so I have no connection with him. So if Taka, you're Godel. One of them in Beruchnis, whatever, there's a certain Godless, he's a Talmud Chochem or he's a Taka Godel. But he's stuck in his Godlos that he can't bridge the gap to get to a Kotten. So he's stuck in Godlos. Sometimes a person can be stuck in Godlos. Not chas v'sholom in a bad way that he's stuck up and he's a balgaiva, so that would be a midah.
He cannot go down.
He can't go down, so he's stuck. He's big. He's a great guy, but he can't let himself down to the level of a cotton. So I push the thing. His child is talking to him, and but he can't listen to what the child is saying. So that's a problem. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. So when a godel could break the boundaries. Because what makes the difference of the Godel and the Cotton? That's only in the Spashta Sachai. So it's not the Etzem, like, in other words, like if it's a Neshama, it's a Zabazach. So if Melchabosh was Megayed, him and the child is a Zabazach, Zabanesham. So therefore, when a person could break the boundaries, not be stuck, ich bin azah Godel, and this is not Cotton. So what do I have? I'm responsible for the Cotton. I'm a big Godel, I'm a big guy, and my head is into big things. And I can't focus and break the boundaries. I'll be responsible for some little kid, a 3-year-old in Pampers. It's not for me. So I'm stuck in Gadlus. Therefore I'm stuck. But when I could break that boundary and feel responsible for the cotton, then I start to shine myself. Then I myself start to shine. When the Gdolim start feeling responsible for the Ktanim, then they start to shine. The Rebbe says that this is a shaykhis to a few things. First of all, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said that before Mashiach comes, even little children will learn Pnimis HaTorah. So it has a shaykhis with what we're saying here, Parshas Emor. Mitzvah Shem next week is going to be like Boimer. Also, the Medrash says that Oiskes Kfulas, all the double letters, have a shaykhis to the Geula. So that's why over here, Emor ve'amarta. It's a... Yeah, like Mem Shloss Mem and Manganun. So these are shaykhs the Geula.
Pesach Sheni is Friday.
This Pesach Sheni is Friday's Pesach Sheni.
Anyone needs more on that side? Extra.
Oh,
Perfect. Thank you.
so now we have a few minutes before I tell the Rebbe's other words.
Beautiful.
There's a story with Rabbi Whiteman that he told. Rabbi Whiteman is a shliach in Brazil.
Wow.
Rabbi Whiteman, according to Jack Mann, is a good friend of the Safras. Rabbi Whiteman. Yeah. But Rabbi Whiteman is a shliach there for many years. Before he was Eilu L'Gdula to become the rabbi of the Safras, tzach geschlept via the shliach to cover the budget. So he said that he came to the Rebbe once. This was Tav Shalom Test, 1979, and he was at Yechidus. And the Rebbe asked him, "What's with a summer camp for children in Sao Paulo?" So he shrugged his shoulders. So the Rebbe said, "Was it felt Kinder in Sao Paulo? You don't have enough children to open a camp?"
Yeah.
Okay. So he said, "We're opening a camp." So the Rebbe said, "Okay." The Rebbe wrote him afterwards a note, and Chuas Chen. The Rebbe is happy. So that summer he had a camp, Baruch Hashem, 100 children. Wrote to the Rebbe a report. The Rebbe writes one word, Protim. He wants to know all the details. Okay? So he writes a report, and the Rebbe writes back, again, same 2 words, Chuas Chen. The Rebbe is happy. Okay, so now that's what he has to do for the rest of his life. Besides what he's doing. So his main thing at that time was that he had like a soup kitchen, because in Brazil, it's not like in America where there is social services that for poor people, there is food stamps or other programs, food pantries, nursing mothers get these things, and milk and cheese and all kinds of nice things. A week, right? That all kinds of nice things that are nice things that people should have food to eat, and the U.S. government also helps out. Like if you have here Masbia or the Met Council, so they get a lot of support from the U.S. government, which is a beautiful thing. Third world countries doesn't work that way. So the disparity is very big, but Yidden have to take care of Yidden. So Chabad has a soup kitchen in Sao Paulo, and this was his responsibility. The name of his moised is Ten Yad, Kipshute. He has a soup kitchen, a whole food pantry. So now he's responsible to have a camp. That year, he said he was so busy. Every year he would make a big concert to raise money for his soup kitchen. And that year and it came down to it. And the last minute, they didn't have a good singer, they didn't have a hall, but he said he didn't want to do it, but said they do every year. These big events are very hard to run. And the last minute, they got some guy, folksy guy that sang Yiddish songs. They had a little hall, 300 people. It wasn't like they usually have, but they did something. And they showed a video, a promo video of their activities, of the soup kitchen, the camp. The camp is growing, and he needs to have a space. So there's a few years down the line, and there's already 300 children in the camp. And he wants to purchase. So he finds a place outside the city in the mountains, gorgeous, gorgeous place. And the deal was that he could use it for summer, and then purchase to buy. The problem is that he's going into contract, and they're smiling and they're signing everything, but he doesn't have a nickel. So it's 1980, 1981, so 82. So he's sitting in his office, and he's thinking, what's going to be? So he says, you know what? He can't write to the Rebbe. He's sitting there. So he's sitting. He was sitting in his office, and
Brazil 30 years ago to send a letter to America.
So he opened up at that time. Igris Kodesh were coming out. He opened up a letter. Igris Kodesh, and he wanted to see chizuk from a letter. And he was one of the first volumes. Is a beautiful letter to Shliach in Sao Paulo, who's now a Choshev Lubavitch, a businessman. Shenayla Mahemes, a Chitrek family, father of the Chitrek family. Wow. He was then sent as a Shliach. Hershel Chitrek, right? There's a beautiful few letters that Rebbe wrote them. Long pages, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages letters. Beautiful letters. So you see how the Rebbe is thinking over there. But it tells them all. The Rebbe gives them a lot of chizuk. So anyway, the Rebbe writes them about the importance of opening up a camp, and that this way, you get a kid, and then you could make him a pecha his whole life. So he had unbelievable chizuk from it, and he closes the sefer, and there's a knock on the door. There's an Alta Yidel that comes in. He said, "Finally, I found you." He said, 2 years ago there was a concert, and I love Yiddish songs. I came to the concert. He said, and he saw the video was beautiful about the pulas that they're doing, and he says he wants to donate, but he didn't he says, I find you. And he says he wants to tell him that he has a brother sister passed away in a wealthy family, and there's no yorshim, so he gave him on the spot $18,000 check, and more to follow. And more to follow.
Because of the concert that he wanted to do.
Yeah. So anyway, Rebbe Shehalfman should be lahazik gdולים al aktanim, that we should have responsibility for ktanim, and take we should there's some of the things that we used to do over here is take doing for ktanim, and we should have atzlocha. So before we go, just want to tell you there's a beautiful letter from the Rebbe that he writes to Machanach. He wasn't Rebbe at that time. It was Tavshin Daled. The Rebbe writes someone like this. Yesh shloima b'derech haremez, mashomer Razal yivomes dafkuf yedaled. Asher gimel pomim nemer achiv lahazik doilam alaktanim shkotzim dam tuma. Why dafka in these three tzmurumas? The Rebbe says thing up hidrush. One is a person could say that it's a country or it's a place where people are like shkotzim. They're not begeder anushi klal. That these people, you can't talk to them. That they're so bad, they're so morally decrepit. The Gemara says.
They eat it.
And these crazy guys eat it, and I'm going to go be mechanech them. No, so the Eibusha says not. No. The Eibusha says that still he gives you koyach, the hazak gdolim al aktanim, to be machanachim and such yid. Then he's going to say, okay, how about a place, the Gemara says in the Sifrei, it's brought in Sifrei, chazak lebiltei achol adam, Rashi brings it, mekana talom b'shishtufim b'adam la'ochle. So what happens if I go to a place over there, this guy, his Zayde, his Alta Zayde, they're already so far from Yiddish guy, 4 generations, already shtufim badam. Then these guys, I have no way to get to them. David says not true. There's a way to get to them. Even people that are shtufim badam, you can say lahazak doilam alaktan. And then there's a third thing that a person says, okay, insensible things. Sensible things, but start to tell a person that's so far from Yadus to start telling him things that are Munah, that are pure in yonim of a Munah. They make no sense. They're just Munah Tahoida, Bitochen, Munah Tahoida. It's not Shayach. These people don't know anything about it. So Taka Dina Tuma V'Tarav, the Rambam said, is not something which the Das is Machniya. The Rambam says it's not like dirt that you wash off. Tuma V'Tarav is so we say even things that are chukim like Tuma V'Tarav, also there it's shayach to be mazer agdolim alaktanim. So there's no excuse, even if you find that there's a group of Yidden that have all the 3 chesroinus put together. Still there's a mitzvah and there's a koyach in the Torah lahazer agdolim alaktanim. Maybe shall helfen take that we should be mazak gdolim alaktanim in the way of Zohar, and the same in the miracles that are happening to other shluchim can't be alone.
Amen. We said that by sheker, by shkotzim is even mashal. In Hebrew it says, what's worse from fine worm in the apple?
Half of a worm.
Is it in English also?
Yeah.
David, thank you for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you.
You're the 10th. You're the 10th.
What's worse from fine?
Well, I can answer.
Davis is there.
I already davened.
That's
You
Davis.
davened already? Oh, okay, fine.
That's Davis.
Yochanan, you davened?
Oh,
Good night.